Good evening, and thank you for joining us for the Outdoor Art Club's presentation of Flood Control Part 2, an ongoing concern for Southern Marin. I'm Robin Geisler, and I'm working with Erin Griffiths to bring you tonight's program. For those of you who are not familiar with the Outdoor Art Club, we're a nonprofit women's organization founded in 1902. The club engages in civic, cultural, and charitable work in our community. To give you just a few examples of the things we do, the club organizes cleanup days along Marin's beaches. We prepare and serve meals for the homeless at Jonathan's Place in San Rafael, and we provide 2 annual college scholarships to deserving Tamalpais High School graduates. The Outdoor Art Club also hosts an annual public speaker series so that we can bring our community programs just like this one. I have one housekeeping item. Tonight's speakers plan to leave some time at the end of their presentation to answer your specific questions. We would like you to enter those questions using Q&A, which can usually be found at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And now it's time for me to introduce Beverly Rogers, who will give you some background on today's speakers.
Thank you, Robin. Hello to everyone this evening. It's my pleasure to introduce Stephanie Moulton-Peters, District 3 Marin County Supervisor, and Judd Goodman, Marin County Senior Civil Engineer. Stephanie Moulton-Peters, a good friend of mine for lots of years, advocates always for transparent, inclusive, and effective governance. She serves as Vice Chair of the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, which is the MTC, and is actively involved in regional planning, regional transportation, regional climate resilience, and housing through various boards, including the BCDC, which is there to protect our shoreline, the Golden Gate Bridge District and Transportation Authority of Marin, or TAM. Previously, she served 3 terms on the Mill Valley City Council. With a background in environmental policy from Stanford, and executive training from the Harvard Kennedy School, Stephanie brings a wealth of experience to shaping Marin's future. She lives here in Mill Valley with her husband, and I have had the pleasure of teaching her kids in chorus at Mill Valley Middle School. Mr. Goodman is water resources engineer with experience in planning, design, and adaptive management of surface and potable water systems. Judd's professional passion lies in providing flood and erosion protection for the public while preserving natural riparian and earth processes. His most significant and technical contributions have been made solving problems and finding solutions that require both his engineering and his geomorphic perspective. So right now, Stephanie, you are on.
Thank you, Beverly. So nice to be with you. And we loved all the chorus performances with the kids in school. It's my pleasure to be with all of you at the Outdoor Art Club again this year. Thank you so much for inviting us back. I'm pleased to be here with Judd Goodman this evening, and also with our Mill Valley Public Works Director, as well as Brian de Guzman, Senior Engineer in Public Works, and you'll be meeting them in a little while. For those of you who weren't able to join us last year, we're going to give a little bit of a review about our flood district, our watersheds, and how we work with natural systems in the watersheds. And then we'll talk about current projects and bring you up to date. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Judd Goodman, who really has all the knowledge on this topic, and I am happy to be with him this evening. Judd, please.
There. Nice to be with everyone. Glad to return this year. I'll be talking about flood control part 2. an update on the latest studies and strategies for Southern Marin. As many of you may know, I gave a similar talk with Stephanie last year, and just want to emphasize that flood control is not only a concern for Southern Marin, it's an opportunity to improve the community's quality of life. So the agenda today, I'm going to go through a basic introduction, talk about watersheds in Southern Marin, the flood zones, how we're organized in the flood district in Southern Marin, and then go through projects, including operations and maintenance related projects, capital improvements, as well as planning level studies. So first, I'm a civil engineer. I've been with Marin County Flood Control District for a little over a year now. And so the area that we're talking about is Stephanie Moulton-Peters district that she's the supervisor of at the county. So that's District 3. The mission of the Flood Control District is to reduce flood risk to life and property, enhance our natural resources, plan, design, construct, operate, and maintain the district's flood infrastructure. And we're also here to work with citizen groups and other county teams, municipalities, and local regional agencies to make all those goals happen. I want to emphasize that we're really aiming to reduce the magnitude, frequency, and duration of flooding. We're not necessarily able to eliminate it completely, but we're doing our best to reduce it. In terms of watersheds in Southern Marin, there's 6 primary watersheds, and laser pointer here. What a watershed is, by definition, is the area that drains to a given outlet in a drainage system. So you can see that these 6 watersheds in Southern Marin are defined by the outlet, or these stars that are drawn here. So all the area in Coyote Creek in the gold color drains to this one point, the outlet into Richardson Bay. And so that is the definition of a watershed. So we have Marin City watershed, Coyote Creek, Arroyo Cordemadera del Presidio, Ryan Creek, the Sutton Manor, Alto Strawberry watershed, and Bel Air. In terms of, so that's the terrain. In terms of the precipitation, a lot of the patterns of rainfall that come to us come from the Pacific Ocean. There's more rain that falls on the west side of Marin. It gets blocked by Mount Tamalpais. And then, so there's less rainfall on the side that we're talking about today along Richardson Bay. In terms of runoff, runoff in a natural setting can be much less than in an urban setting. This picture shows on the left more the natural setting, and you can see when rain falls, it naturally collects on leaves on trees and grass and brush, and it also seeps into the ground. And some of that, if the rainstorm is large enough, will make its way into our creek systems. The amount of runoff that goes to our storm drains and creek systems is increased or exacerbated when we add imperviousness. So urbanization, rooftops, roadways, pavement, all that does not necessarily seep in or get collected, but it runs off in higher magnitude and more frequently.
Judd, we had a request. Can you enlarge your screen, your slide to full screen for us?
Full screen. Not sure how to do that. Let's see.
Let's see.
I think I am at full screen. Is it, I'm sharing, you can just see one image on my screen right now?
And then we actually see your notes on the right for what your slide is as well.
Oh,
Anyway,
apologies.
it's we can live with it if it's not easy to.
Oh, no, I thought I had it set up. One moment. Is that better?
Yes, it is perfect.
Okay, apologies.
No worries.
Thanks for letting me know. Okay, so in terms of flooding, there's different mechanisms for flooding. We have creek overflow, which is where creeks spill over the banks, which is shown here. We have isolated ponding, so that's when pools form without positive drainage. Stormwater overflow is when storm drains can back up, or there's conveyance deficiencies or condition deficiencies. So conveyance deficiency being the pipe's just not large enough in order to convey the flow that's occurring during the storm. Or condition deficiency is when the pipe is actually clogged with debris or sediment. And that can cause an overflow as well. And then also tidal inundation with rising tides can flood lowland areas. This is a big issue along the bay margins where if there's development on top of young bay mud, that is fairly compressible. So in certain parts of Marin, we see, in the orders of inches to feet of differential settlement that has occurred over time. And when you're near the bay, that can really affect flooding. This is a picture just to show that flooding has occurred historically in Southern Marin. So as long as people have lived in Southern Marin, we've been dealing with floods and their impacts. And now I wanted to hand it over to Stephanie. She has something to say about this.
Thank you, Judd. For those of you who lived in Mill Valley a while, you'll recognize a few of the older photos as Miller Avenue. And we've had flooding even recently in Miller Avenue. But we have experienced periodic flooding over the decades, and I think Judd will have a slide on that. So Mill Valley and other parts of Southern Marin are no strangers to flooding based on where we live. And the top left bubble is Richardson Bay with sort of the whole Mill Valley watershed drainage in the photo. So we just sit right on, a lot of Mill Valley sits right on former wetlands. And so there are low-lying areas and they do tend to flood. So it is a challenge to address that, but there are things we can do, as Judd has said, and Andrew and Brian will tell you. There are things we can do to reduce the amount of flooding and the duration that it lasts. Thanks, Judd.
Sure. And then this is a timeline of different events in terms of land use changes as well as major storm events. So there's a good record of major flooding and land use change in Southern Marin. So engineers like to learn from past lessons. We actually have a historian as an intern right now who's been documenting observed flooding. So it's important to have that record and learn from it in terms of how much rainfall fell that resulted in a flood. As a geomorphologist, I think not only about water flow, but sediment as well. So this is a artistic rendering of what I call a longitudinal profile of a creek. So there's zones different zones of sediment. There's sediment production when in the steep hillsides, there's erosion, which supplies the creek with quite a bit of sediment. Then there's the zone of transport. So that's where in our creeks, many of them are conveying that sediment supplied from above and along bank erosion down through the system until we get to more of a depositional area. Those tend to be on the flats along the bay. And so sediment deposition is an issue when it affects the ability to control for flooding. So if there's enough sediment buildup, there could be a need to dredge or excavate that sediment. So you may be asking yourself how you might be able to help. One is inspecting and clearing your driveway, culvert, and drainage is very important. I don't know if many of you know that pavement damage, soil erosion, and mudslides can actually be caused by blocked stormwater flow across driveways or under driveways through culverts. If leaves or other waste block the flow of stormwater runoff, then the water gets redirected and can cause serious flooding or other localized erosion. So those issues can lead to road closures and need for repair projects. And those repair projects cost money, and you know, they're paid for in many cases by county tax dollars. So you can help prevent such damage and costs to the public by doing these simple things, including inspecting, clearing your drainages, reducing debris, placing green waste in the compost. So doing your part before the rain. Best time to have some cleaning is late summer, early fall, right before the wet season starts. Next, I'm going to talk about flood zones, how the flood district is organized in Southern Marin. You can see that we have flood zone 3, including Mill Valley, Tamalpais Valley, Marin City, and then we also have zone 4 in Tiburon. So our different types of projects, we have maintenance projects, capital improvements, as well as planning studies. And this is one example of a sediment debris basin that's in the Coyote Creek watershed. And it's an example of where this project had to be planned. It was in a planning document to begin with, so that's a study. And then it was built, and when it's built, that's a capital improvement. And then following that, there's regular maintenance. So this is a picture of where some contractors are cleaning out sediment that was built up in the debris basin. So for maintenance, this gives you a little bit of the areas that the flood district concentrates on. We have a number of pump stations, 8 pump stations in zone 3 and 4. And we also have creeks and levees that we maintain. These are the names of the different pump stations. For pump station maintenance, we have our regular maintenance for all pumps, which occurs annually. And that regular maintenance includes inspection, testing of pumps and engines, as needed replacement of electrical and mechanical components and fuel, and then major maintenance on a 6-year interval. And this coming summer, that will include one pump each at these 4 pump stations: Crest Marin, Seminary Drive, Strawberry Circle, and Cove. We try to do one at a time so that we don't have several pumps at one station out of commission at any one time. For creek and levee maintenance, we have vegetation that overhangs the Coyote Creek concrete channel. So that needs to be trimmed back for inspections of the concrete walls and the tide gates every year. We have levees that are mowed in spring, and rodent burrows are filled twice in the summertime. Tide gates are maintained, repaired, and replaced as needed. And every other year, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers completes an inspection of the Coyote Creek and related facilities. There's also sediment removal that's scheduled during the summer. This is just another map showing the Coyote Creek area that the district focuses a lot of its stream maintenance program on. So now on to capital improvements. We're going to start, I'm going to list the different capital improvements we're going to go through, and then each one has its own slide. So we'll talk with staff from the city of Mill Valley about what they're doing. We have 3 projects in Marin City, 2 in Tam Valley, and then 1 in Tiburon. First off, for City of Mill Valley, I want to hand it over to Andrew Poster. He's the Public Works Director at Mill Valley, and Brian de Guzman, who's a project manager. There was $3 million in flood risk reduction projects that were approved by Flood Zone 3 in September of 2024. And so this is really an example of municipality collaboration with the flood district to get important projects implemented. And so I'll hand it over to Andrew to talk about what they're doing.
All right, thanks, Judd. Good evening, everybody. I want to first start off by thanking Stephanie and the team for inviting Mill Valley to talk a little bit about what we have going on. Also, just a fun fact about me, I don't think that Robin mentioned it in our introduction of what the Outdoor Art Club does. I actually got married there a little over 28 years ago, so thank you for keeping that facility up and keep on doing the great work. I love walking past it every day, so it's very cool. Very special to me. So I wasn't exactly sure where we were going to fit in on the slides. So I just got a little overview, just a couple minutes. In the city of Mill Valley, where it really started to get pretty hot and heavy for me was about, I don't know, 8 years ago. We were working with the Flood Control Zone District to get some funding, and they helped fund a study that the city of Mill Valley did, what we called it the Flood Control and Storm Drain Master Plan. It took us over 4 years to complete that. It was guided by a task force. Many of the folks on the task force you may know, some may even be in attendance tonight. I know certainly Stephanie was on that task force. And that's a plan where we reviewed various strategies, methods, projects of what was and wasn't feasible, what was and wasn't affordable, what we could do. As Stephanie mentioned, we live in a marsh, basically. We live at the bottom of a very rainy mountain in a marsh. So it's a really important and complicated topic. So again, glad to be here and try to help with it. Anyway, that study gave us a lot of potential drainage improvement projects and flood reduction projects, and it really helped serve as a basis for seeking funding. And it was a lot of public outreach involved. Like I mentioned, took a couple of years. So we got input from the community on where some of the hot spots were and what were some of the things that could be done. So one of the things that we've been doing for many years now is an annual creek clearing project. We usually work in partner with the Flood Control Zone District. There were permitting challenges. Some of the regulatory agencies changed what was and what wasn't feasible. So we actually went ahead and did that with our own staff this year. We've got a lot of what we call nuisance flooding. I've got a list of almost a dozen locations. We did 2 locations where we basically changed storm drain inlets, put in new pipes. Existing pipes had collapsed, blocked up, or fences were built over them. We did a project on Blythedale between Oakland and Gardner where we put in new storm drain lines. Blythedale at Hillside and Bigelow, a bunch of you might drive past that as well. That's been a real challenge. Water coming down the hill, crossing over the streets. We've done Blythedale at Hill. We have sheeting water that we have to capture. We've done a project on King just east of Blythedale. There's a project on the Dipsea. Some of you may know, this SLPs in town are really easements. They're utility or drainage easements, so there are a lot of challenges. The natural water path wants to go down those stairways. So some of them have pipes under them, some of them don't, so they wash out. So that's a challenge that the staff works with a lot. On Monte Vista, last year we had what's called a head wall collapse. It overflowed with water. It caused a mudslide down on Wainwright. That's something we've been dealing with in the drainage world. And then around 550 Miller, there's flooding there. If you guys know the development that's on the side of the hill that used to be called Simon's Way. We're in the process of putting in 5 different pipes across the roadway there to get the water from the development, from Safeway into the median channel there, which, backs up when king high tides are there. So that's a challenge that we're dealing with. And actually in that location, I'm glad Judd mentioned this. He mentioned sediment control. That's a big problem environmentally as well. The sediment comes down the hills, backs up storm drains. There's something now that we're all required to do as part of our permitting, National NPDES, National Discharge Elimination Pollution System. And one of the things is it helps keep dirt and debris and chemicals out of the bay. So there's a trash capture requirement. So Marin County's colleagues all work together through something called McStop, and we were able to get some funding, and we've had a project installed recently near Safeway. It was installed within a month. The last rains last week, 2 weeks ago, completely backed up. So there's a challenge. There's some competing interests. We want to help solve the sediment issue and keep it out of the bay, but we also don't want that solution to cause flooding. So that's something that we work with. In a different direction, back to studies, the city was successful with a grant from the Ocean Protection Council about 6 months ago, where we secured almost a $1 million grant. We've got $200,000 of local match that we're putting to it. So we have an almost $1.2 million project that we're right now just starting to kick off. We are about to issue a request for proposals for consultants. And what that really is, that's really going to look at sea level rise. And I know the county also has some sea level rise plans and studies going on, and we're going to collaborate with them. There is some rules and regulations out there. I think it's by 2030, correct me if I'm wrong, Stephanie, where each agency has to have its own adaptation plan. So we really want to look at a large holistic issue of how we can deal with sea level rise as it approaches our critical facilities such as SASM, the Mill Valley Middle School, Miller Ave, and so forth. So we're going to build upon and collate previous vulnerability studies, identify some preferred solutions and strategies, and hopefully get some concept designs done so that when funding is available, that the city will be well positioned to go after those grants. We're talking big, large cost projects to protect those facilities. Then finally, what Judd really mentioned and alluded to is the flood control zone 3. We've been working with staff there for years, working how we can secure funding to protect the area. And like Judd mentioned, last year, since you guys last met, we secured just over 3 million, almost 3.1 million in funds for projects as simple as flap gates. When we have water come in and go out from the tides for our storm drain, we have gates that channel that so it prevents water from coming in during storm times, but also letting it go out when we need it to drain. Of course, that doesn't always happen at the same time. Sometimes it's high tide and raining, and so that's a challenge when we get floods. Also, a storm drain database is outlined in that, so we have funds for doing that as well. We have some larger funds for fixing, doing drainage improvements throughout Arroyo, Corte Madera, Del Presidio. Also for studying the effectiveness of improvements for getting some FEMA flood mapping purposes. And this all comes out of the flood and storm drain master plan that I mentioned. It's got 16 different projects identified. And then the big one, and here's where I'm going to pass it over to Brian. Brian joined our team about 2-3 months ago. Very happy to have him on board. And one of the key projects that really is the focus our storm drain and flood money right now is the Sycamore Pump Station. We had an unfortunate incident in December 27th of last year when there was unplanned, unannounced, unknown storm that came, and sure enough, the stinking pump station that we've been, babying along for many years, it didn't work, and it caused a significant amount of flooding, and a bunch of homes got flooded out, vehicles were damaged, and it's a terrible situation. For those of you that may be in that area in Sycamore, I think we're having a walkthrough with the neighborhood next Thursday morning. So if anyone doesn't know about that, please feel free to email me or give me a call and we'll talk specifics. But anyway, with that, I'll pass it over to Brian.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Goodman. I'm with the City of Mill Valley, Department of Public Works. I'm a new project manager, just like Andrew noted. I started earlier this year and glad to be on the team. And I'm be talking about a project that I'm managing, the Sycamore storm drain pump station replacement project. And so, just a description of the project. The storm drain pump station, it collects storm water from local inlets along Sycamore Avenue and the surrounding neighborhood. It was constructed in 1962 and has undergone several repairs. The location, it's located on the southern end of Sycamore Park and just north of Arroyo Corte del Presidio. The existing Sycamore storm drain pump station site is partially located within a storm drain easement with the property owner to the east. And along with this project, we are tasked with getting additional easements that are needed for the pump station footprint and access route that is enclosed alongside Arroyo del Corte Madera. So the project itself will rehab the existing wet well, including a new trash rack, replacement of the existing pumps, and new oversized access hatches for servicing the trash rack and pumps in hopes to improve the reliability and increase its capacity. Right now, we're very early in the design phase. The design phase started in January of 2025, right around when I started here. And we anticipate for the design to conclude in September 2025. Anticipated construction is anticipated for spring 2026, and it'll take about a year for construction. The cost of the project is estimated to be $1.9 million. Some of the challenges that we've been facing is kind of utility coordination. And so there's an existing PG&E electric service line and power pole that are located above the existing pump station wet well, which makes it difficult to remove and maintain the pumps. The service end meter is mounted on the side of the existing control panel and will need to be relocated to accommodate the storm drain pump station improvements. Like I said earlier, we are very early in the design phase, and we've finished conducting a hydraulic analysis and also the basis of design moving forward with anticipation for 35% coming soon. But yeah, glad to provide any updates as needed as we go along with this project. Thank you. I want to push it back to Judd.
Great. Thank you, Brian. The next project I'll talk about is a Caltrans project. There's a second culvert planned under Highway 101 in Marin City. And so what I have shown here is different sub-watersheds within Marin City. You can see all of these drain to the one outlet culvert that runs underneath Highway 101. About half of the watershed drains to the estuary pond and then into this culvert, and the other half, this purple, what we're calling the Phillips watershed, bypasses the pond, but then confluences with that water into one box culvert, and that outlets to Richardson Bay, right where the floating homes are. And so what this project would do is split the flow so that we have another means of getting across getting runoff across Highway 101 to the bay. And so the Phillips watershed would have its own designated outfall. And this actually really helps with conveyance of water during a peak storm and getting water out. And it does not, you can imagine, it's kind of a log jam of water into one box culvert. This will allow for much more readily to be able to get the water out of Marin City. The next one is a flood district project, and this was completed in the fall of 2024. It's the Donahue Temporary Pump Station. You can see it from the intersection of Drake and Donahue, just outside the Gateway Shopping Mall. This project is to reduce the duration of flooding. It includes portable pumps, and it allows for some improvement of the entrance and exit of into and out of Marin City. As I'll talk about later with the Marin City Stormwater Plan, this area, the Drake and Donahue intersection, as well as the off-ramp, on-ramp for the Highway 101 southbound lanes, can get flooded during high tides and heavy rainstorms. And so relatively frequently. And so this is a means to help control that until we can get a more permanent pump station in place. So this was built and it's operational, and it's been functioning as intended.
If I might, Judd, it's been functioning very well, and I think everyone should know the Drake Donahue underpass typically floods often during the winter. And thanks to this temporary pump, for the first time, that underpass has remained open even in our heavy winter rains. So that is really quite a remarkable thing for that community. They have not had that before. So thanks to our team.
Next is more of the permanent solution for a pump station in Marin City. As I showed in the prior watershed diagram, the outlet is the existing box culvert under Highway 101. So this would be a new pump station to be able to send water that collects in the pond out to the bay, even when there's high tides. Typically when there's high tides, we need to shut a slide gate during high tide so that we don't actually have inundation in roadways within Marin City, even on a dry day. So you can imagine when there's rain on a high tide, having the capability of a pump station to be able to draw down the pond and alleviate the flooding and the backwaters on the streets of Marin City is really helpful. Planned construction is 2028 or 29. We're currently in the midst of a grant application for the FEMA BRIC program. And so we're in the midst of responding to requests for information during that. This is another side view of it, and I have a little animation to share. So this is the pond here. There'll be a new outlet for the pond, a new flood wall along here in order to reduce flooding on the shoulder of Highway 101 South. And this is the pump station itself. And we are going, next Tuesday, we're going to have an event to kick off a process for how to beautify this pump station. And you can see that it's quite a canvas for some artwork, local artists to contribute to beautifying, rather than it creating an eyesore. It can be an amenity for the community. Next is in Tam Valley, Crest Marin Pump Station rehabilitation. The pump station was built in 1978, so it's reaching the end of its design life. It drains low-lying neighborhoods and a creek. And so it just, there needs to be a pretty major rehabilitation associated with it. We're looking at constructing in 2027, and we're currently in design, the early stages of design for this project. Also in Tam Valley is the Cardinal Levee Seepage Mitigation Project. It replaces over 1,000 feet of levee on Coyote Creek with sheet piles. And there's seepage issues on the levee due to rodent burrows. So we're also in process with the design right now, planned for construction in 2027. And this gives the location of where it is. This is Coyote Creek flowing from left to right. And the Good Earth Shopping Center is right here. Give a frame of reference. Next in Tiburon, the East and West Creek restoration. While the title is restoration or creek rehabilitation, this is really aimed at reducing flood risk in the watershed. And so we'll be rehabilitating parts of the creek, removing sediment, as well as stabilizing banks, and creating some more cross-sectional area in the channel to be able to convey flows. There is a possibility of doing some planning as part of this contract in order to see how tide gates could possibly function on these creek systems in order to better protect Tiburon Boulevard, which is, like Marin City, can be impacted during high tides.
Yeah, if I might, I'd like to give a shout out to the members of the Flood Zone 4 board who are here tonight with us. Good to have you, as well as Flood Zone 3. But I know Flood Zone 4 has been eagerly awaiting work on East and West Creek. And so if you could say a little more, Judd, are we in the design phase right now, or what stage are we in so that we go to construction in 2027?
We are in process of the request for qualifications has been publicized. We have a good number of consulting firms that do this type of design work who are interested. We had a pre-bid meeting just last week, and so we're looking at selection in early April for the design contract.
Thank you, and we'll be out to Flood Zone 4 in April as well.
Great. And now planning level studies. I'm going to really highlight the Marin City Stormwater Plan. This is the location of Marin City within the Southern Marin. And there's been, as I alluded to, quite a bit of frequent flooding in intersections at Drake and Donahue and Highway 101, on-ramp, off-ramp, that can isolate the community at times during heavy storms. So this project, the purpose is really to identify projects to protect that public access during the floods, recommend and prioritize improvements. A key piece of this is reducing flood risk not only as a technical study, but with community input. So the community was essential in terms of providing survey responses for their values of 9 different criteria or objectives of the plan. And we were able to incorporate that into the scoring of our alternatives. The plan also is aimed to improve effectiveness of flood management operations, integrate with Caltrans, and attract funding for recommended projects. The different improvement types are geared towards, different issues. One is maintenance. So sediment and debris can get into our storm drain systems. And part of the watershed, while part of the watershed is very steep on the hillsides, they drain to the lower watershed, which is flat and flood prone. And that's where a lot of sediment and debris can settle out and clog our storm drains. So we need to maintain those. We need to repair those storm drains that are broken. In some cases, we're looking at increasing the size of storm drain pipes or adding some pumping capacity in order to convey the water more readily. This is a naturally flood-prone area. And then also stabilize sediment higher up in the watershed so that it doesn't end up in our storm drains and clogging the storm drains, similar to what we see right here. So landslides and erosion can actually turn into clogging issues downstream. This gives some of the recommendations. So one is, this looks familiar. This is the Phillips Drive bypass to the New Bay outfall. That is the second culvert. That project is underway with Caltrans. And then also Drake pipe upsize, increasing inlets along Drake in order to be able to get more water with more drop inlets from the street surface to get it into under the street in the storm drain pipe, and then being able to convey it. This is a project that a lot of other projects rely on to be able to get flow down to where it needs to go. And then as more of a sea level rise adaptation type of project when needed, considering a partial bypass to a New Bay outfall, which could or could not include some storage in the traffic area, the cloverleaf, as well as pumping. And I want to add that the temporary Donahue pumps could actually, that infrastructure that was built could actually be utilized to help implement this other project. There's also improvements that are further up in the watershed, and those are really meant to control sediment and debris from getting into our storm drain system. So you'll see a lot of trash racks and sediment basins, increasing inlet capacities, and repairing landslides, connecting hillside pipes in order to alleviate some mud flow, debris flows that have happened, and other cases where we just need to increase inlet capacity to get more water in, and also stabilize some of the hillside trails with simple best management practices to control for the erosion sediment coming off those steep hillsides. Overall, what we're looking at, if this is the existing condition, the magenta color is deeper flood depth for this particular event. And you'll see the shoulder of Highway 101 in the existing condition getting flooded, as well as the off-ramp and the Drake and Donahue intersections. And then once we include our baseline projects, which is the pump station, flood wall, and a short segment in the Gateway Mall of replacing and upsizing pipe, that in itself will really improve things, we feel, in terms of being able to get through Marin City, in and out of Marin City during a storm event. And the additional projects will only make it better than that. Community communication has been crucial as part of this. And I do want to highlight that this coming Tuesday, March 25th at 5:30, there will be the third and final community meeting for the Marin City Stormwater Plan. It's at the Marin City Arts and Culture Studio at the Gateway Shopping Mall. And it's open to the public, and you're welcome to join. And Stephanie, did you want to speak here?
You know, in wrapping up, I just want to say how important community communication is. People who live in areas are the ones who know the most about the flood patterns. So we have our meeting in Marin City. I know that Andrew mentioned a walkabout in the Sycamore community, which is important. And then we'll have our Flood Zone 4 meeting later in April. So all very important, partnership between the city, the county, and our communities. So thank you. Beverly, back to you.
Hey, am I back on? Can't quite tell.
We see you.
I see me, but I'm not full screen, but I guess that doesn't matter. Well, thank you so much. That was really, really an informative discussion, Stephanie and Judd for sure, Andrew as well, and Brian, all of you. So there are a few questions that I can read to see if anybody wants to answer them. Let me see. Here we go with the Q&A. Betsy Bickles asks us, many culverts under the roads have much sediment perched just upstream from them. Shouldn't that be removed? And is there a plan to remove that sediment? Anybody? Andrew?
I can answer that. Before I do, if I could first say, Judd, would you mind shutting off your screen, stopping your share screen?
Sure.
I learned after I talked that I was a thumbnail, which I'm fine with, but if anyone wants, I didn't do a PowerPoint slide, but Brian did 3 slides, so we could forward it to Beverly or whoever if they want, if they're putting out a package to the group, so they have that information, because it's a little hard to know. But anyway, Betsy, good question. The reality is, yes, we do it sometimes. But a lot of the storm drain culverts, the bottom of them is already rusted out, and what we really need to do is replace them. So you can't, there's earth underneath them, so you can't continue to clean that out. We have cleaned some of them out underneath Camino Alto a few years ago in the Miller median that I mentioned as well. Some of that takes permitting that's difficult to get. Some of it isn't as difficult to get. It depends whether it's a concrete bottom or not. But yes, we do that, and we are looking at using our sewer cleaning hydrovac to do more of it if possible.
Okay, good answer. Here's an interesting one, I think, from Potter Wick, where he wants to know, how can artists submit beautifying ideas for that pump station that was mentioned? How can people submit ideas? Maybe Judd could answer that.
It's a great question. Yeah, I would encourage Potter and others to join us this coming Tuesday at the Marin City Arts and Culture Studio. We're going to have the first hour at 5:30 is going to be all about the Marin City Stormwater Plan. It's open house format. But after that, there's going to be a presentation by Oshala, who is the head of the arts and culture, and she will be talking about a pump beautification. So the idea being that there's going to be a series of 3 different community meetings, and so it'd be great for Potter or others to come to that meeting and provide their input there to Oshala and the artists that she's working with.
That's really a wonderful opportunity for people to get involved with beautification, I think. Another question here. A lot of the creek from Karen, a lot of the creek channels have been altered, straightened, concrete lined, and vegetation removed. Has that exacerbated flooding and sedimentary problems? And if so, are there any mitigation possibilities? Who'd like to take that?
I can take a stab at that. As a flood control engineer, as well as a geomorphologist, I think about natural processes. And when we have development that is close to a waterway that conveys flows, oftentimes in the past, more in the last century, there was one way of going about things is to smooth the roughness of that channel in order to convey more flow in less space. So that, obviously we're looking to have homes, we're looking to have businesses, we can have more development in that space versus allowing for a natural riparian buffer. So it's understandable that we're living with decisions made in the past, past development, as well as past engineering decisions. We don't typically create new concrete channels, but the ones that we have need to be maintained, and they do serve an important flood control purpose to be able to convey flow.
On a positive note, in our county parks and open space department, some of you may know we've been working on a plan to reroute the bicycle path that runs through from Mill Valley down to Sausalito. And as we get to Tam Valley and the Coyote Creek area, the ultimate plan would include allowing some of Coyote Creek to go back to a more natural curvaceous flow and get some of it out of the channel as part of that project. So it is possible to go the reverse direction, and I hope we get the opportunity to do that in the future.
Sounds good. Oops. I have my own personal question for Andrew. Where exactly, I'm one of the ones who was over flooded during the January 27, et cetera thing. Not clear exactly where the Sycamore pump station is. The directions were mentioned, but where is it exactly? Is it at the beginning of Sycamore, the end of Sycamore? Where is it?
Great question. And actually, Brian, that's one of the slides that he has. Brian, you mind pulling up your slide?
Sure, let me see if I can share it 1 second.
But while he's pulling that up, the short answer is it's at Sycamore Park.
Well,
So
at
it's
Sycamore Park.
Yeah,
Okay.
the backside of Sycamore Park.
Along the creek.
Yeah, yeah. So if you have enough time.
Sycamore Park. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it isn't right where the MTC, the Marin Theater Company is. That's not where it is, right?
No, it's downstream of that by
Okay.
maybe, I'm just guessing, 4 parcels or so, maybe more like 6
Okay.
parcels. How you doing, Brian? There we go.
Here we are. Sorry about that. So if you could see here, we have a Arroyo Corte del Presidio alongside here. Valley
You're probably
Circle.
going to need to zoom in, Brian. At least on
Yep.
my screen, you are.
Lagoma. Okay, I'm looking.
So here, this little blue circle, I'm sorry if it's quite small, and I'll try to zoom in as much as I can here. But Arroyo Corte del Presidio is here. Valley Circle, this is Sycamore Park. It's on the south end of Sycamore Park.
Okay.
It's actually in the backyard of one of the property owner here, and a storm drain easement runs along there.
Okay.
And it's just north of this. So it's tucked behind here quite a ways away, so it's not very visible. But there is a fence enclosure, so you can't really quite see it.
Okay.
It's just a fence, so it looks like a fence to a backyard, if you will.
Yeah.
But there's three pipes that jump out of that fence and pump straight into the creek there.
Okay.
So
Well,
so that's where it's located.
I'm
Yeah,
glad.
I think you have a picture of that too, Brian. And
Yeah.
it's tucked in there. That's Sycamore Terrace. So that's a homeowners association, a condo complex that the city has an easement to go through to get. One of the real challenges is those pipes that are discharging the pumped water, they're often underwater themselves when the creek rises.
I
mean,
okay.
there really isn't easy solutions for these.
So
Yeah,
when on that night, those were not working, right? Those pipes.
There's 3 pumps. One of the 3 pumps was working. The other 2 had electrical issues.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
So yeah, here's the 3 pumps here. We were looking to upgrade and replace these pumps as well as the electrical components that would hope make them more reliable during those situations.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Andrew, Where is your Thursday morning walkabout in the
Yeah,
Sycamore?
thank you. Thank you for reminding me. I didn't know if I should jump in with that. I've looked at my calendar since then. We start Thursday at 8 a.m. And as of right now, the latest information I have, it's Sycamore Park. I don't know if that means we're meeting at the entrance to Sycamore Park or at the back of the park, but that's the information I have.
Okay, that's excellent to know. I'll be there. Okay, are we getting ready to end? What time does it say we have? We're almost at 8 o'clock. Erin, do you want to jump in here? Or Robin, or should we just end it? There's no more questions that I can come up with that have not been answered. Well, wait a minute, Judd, well, wait, there is one more, 7:55. Judd, will you consider attending the FZ4 meeting in late April to discuss Greenwood Cove flooding and backflowing seawater into the Bel Air apartment neighborhood?
I will be there. Looking forward to it.
Oh, he'll be there. Okay. Well, I just want to thank everybody. It really was informative, and some of the Q&A is mostly the A saying, absolutely, we loved it. It was a very informative and excellent presentation. So thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Judd. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Mr. Guzman, and everybody. And with that, be around next year when the OAC Outdoor Art Club will have another webinar, another set of wonderful webinars in 2025. This is the last one for 2025. I'm sorry, for this part of 2025. So good night, all.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.